When's the last time you looked up in an airplane? Did you get a good look at it? Was it even close enough to the ground for you to see? You probably heard at least one fly overhead last week, but did you even glance at it? Like me, you probably let it fly over without much thought. Maybe the sound bothered you. Maybe it irritated you. Maybe your child pointed up at it and you nodded in approval. And maybe, just maybe, you looked up at it, saw it sliding across the sky. Maybe for the second time in your life you saw that ball of winged metal through the eyes of a child. Maybe you saw it for the anomaly that it is. Maybe you finally tilted your neck back and stood amazed at what you hadn't seen in years. Maybe, if only for a moment, your preconceptions melted, and finally allowed you to gaze in awe and horror at what we are capable of doing. Maybe as the plane flew by, you wondered, who's flying it? Maybe you catch a vision of the passengers inside. Maybe you think of it crashing. Maybe you imagine the moments before boarding the plane. Maybe there was a couple that arrived just barely in time to make their flight, only to arrive in hell on board the Twisted Nightmare. Maybe you wonder how we arrived at flight, how our fathers must have stared at birds in wonder and envy. Maybe people were resistant to it. Maybe they were scared by its potential and maybe they didn't trust it. Or maybe they embraced it. Maybe they saw it as novelty and craved it for its thrills. Maybe they were told of its great convenience and use. Maybe they were excited by a new form of travel, the next great step, the door to the future. Or maybe, just like us, they eventually stopped looking up at systems people built for them. Maybe like us, they let it happen. Maybe those planes were just another thing to accept, another thing to let fly by, another thing to ignore. And here we are, under a blanket of uninspected systems handed to us under the presumption that they improve us. And as we scurry away from what we are, we erect more systems to facilitate our disease. We see the symptoms and even complain about them to each other, and yet we won't even look up at the damn airplanes.